What happens to a man who simply vanishes? Not in the dead of night. Not in some dark alley far from home. But in broad daylight, in the middle of a crowded city, walking out of a bank with 5 million naira in a bag, and then, nothing. Nobody. No call. No note. No farewell. In Nigeria, we have a phrase for things we cannot explain. We say, some things are not for our eyes. But what do you do when the thing you cannot explain was your father? Your husband? Your son? Today, we are going to follow the trail of Emeka Okafor, a man who walked into a bank in Onitsha on a Tuesday morning in March 2019, withdrew 5 million naira in cash, and was never seen again. His family is still waiting. The police closed the case. And the money? It has never been recovered. And if this is your first time here, welcome to Stories by the King. Hit that subscribe button, because every week, we go where the truth is hiding. A big man in the Onitsha main market, the kind of man who knew everyone and owed no one. He had a wife, Ngozi, and 3 children. His eldest, Chidi, was in his second year at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. The family lived in a decent bungalow in GRA Onitsha. They were not rich by Lagos standards. But in Anambra, they were comfortable. By all accounts, Emeka was not the kind of man who made enemies. His trading partners described him as careful, slow to speak, slow to anger. A man who calculated before he moved. That Tuesday morning, he woke before his wife, made himself a cup of Milo, and told Ngozi he was going to the bank. Something about settling a supplier deal before the end of the month. He left the house at 7:45 a.m. The First Bank branch on New Market Road received him at 8:22 a.m. Security footage later confirmed this. He joined the queue, spoke briefly to one of the customer service officers, the young woman named Adis, and after about 40 minutes of waiting, he was attended to. He made a cash withdrawal. The exact amount, 5 million Nigerian nairas. Now, understand this, in Nigeria, withdrawing 5 million naira in cash is not unusual for a big trader. Suppliers sometimes insist on cash. Bank transfers have limits. It happens. Even so, the amount was noted. Adis, the officer who processed the transaction, later told investigators that Emeka had been calm. Very calm. He counted the money twice at the counter, placed it in a brown Gonomos-Go bag he had brought with him, and said, "Thank you, my sister." Then he left. The bank CCTV shows him exiting at 9:18 a.m. He turns left out of the entrance, in the direction of the main market. That is the last confirmed footage of Emeka Okafor alive. By 2 p.m., Ngozi began to worry. He had not called. He had not returned. She tried his number, it rang once, then went off. Then it went straight to voicemail. She called his closest friend in the market, a man called Uchenna. Uchenna said he had not seen Emeka that day. He had not opened his shop. By evening, the family had filed a missing persons report at the Onitsha North Police Station. And so began one of the most baffling disappearances in recent Anambra memory. The police moved fast, at first. A detective named Inspector Badmus was assigned to the case within 48 hours. He reviewed the bank footage. He interviewed Adis. He canvassed the street between the bank and the market. He found 2 street traders who said they remembered seeing a man matching Emeka's description walking toward a parked Okada near the junction of New Market Road and Oguta Road. One of the traders, a woman who sold groundnuts from a tray, said the man had paused. He had looked over his shoulder, twice. Then he climbed onto the motorcycle and was gone. Inspector Badmus tracked the Okada rider. It took him 3 days, but he found a man named Benson, who operated a motorcycle along that route. Benson admitted he had carried a passenger that morning. A heavy-set man with a brown bag. He said the man had asked to be taken to Inland Town, a dense residential area not far from the market. Benson dropped him at a junction near the Inland Town waterside. And then, nothing. No one at the waterside remembered him. No neighbor. No gateman. No food seller. It was as if Emeka had dissolved into the crowd the moment he stepped off that motorcycle. Ngozi and her brother-in-law, Obi, began their own investigation. They retraced Emeka's known relationships, suppliers, debtors, market associates. They discovered something that did not sit well with them. 3 weeks before the disappearance, Emeka had received a phone call from a number registered to a company in Lagos, a logistics company called Goldfield Consolidated Limited. According to Chidi, who had overheard parts of the call, his father had sounded excited. He had said, on the phone, "Yes, I can raise that amount. Give me 2 weeks." 2 weeks later, he withdrew 5 million naira. The family hired a private investigator, a former CID officer named David Iza, who operated out of Oka. Iza reached out to the Corporate Affairs Commission and discovered that Goldfield Consolidated Ltd had been registered in 2018, just 1 year before. Its listed director was a man named Sigan Adeyemi. The registered address was a flat in Surale, Lagos. When Iza traced the flat, he found it empty. The landlord confirmed the tenant, a man matching Sigan's description, had vacated 3 weeks earlier. He had paid 6 months' rent in cash and left no forwarding address. Iza brought this to Inspector Badmus. The inspector agreed it was suspicious. A follow-up request was sent to the Lagos State Police Command to investigate Goldfield Consolidated. Weeks passed. No response came. Ngozi believes her husband was lured. She believes someone contacted Emeka with a business deal, something that seemed legitimate, and convinced him to bring cash to a meeting. She believes he was robbed, possibly killed, and that the people involved had connections powerful enough to make the investigation stall. She says, Emeka was not a careless man. He would not carry 5 million naira and walk into something without reason. Someone gave him a reason. Chidi, his son, has a darker theory. He says his father had mentioned, once, that someone in the market owed him a very large sum of money. Someone he trusted. Chidi does not know who. When he asked, his father waved it off and said, "Leave him. I will handle it." Was Emeka on his way to collect a debt? Or to pay one? Or was he walking into a trap laid by a man, or men, who knew exactly what he was carrying? Nobody knows. 3 things about this case never made sense to the investigators who worked it. First, the phone. Emeka's SIM card showed no activity after 9:14 a.m. that Tuesday, 4 minutes before he left the bank. Someone switched off the phone, or the phone was switched off for him, before he even cleared the bank door. This suggests that whoever he was going to meet had already taken precautions. They did not want him making any more calls. Second, the bag. The Gonomos Go bag Emeka carried out of the bank was found 10 days later. A scavenger discovered it near a drainage channel behind the inland town waterside, the exact area where the Okada rider said he dropped Emeka. The bag was empty. No money. No receipt. No phone. But there was one thing inside, a folded piece of paper with a phone number written on it in biro. The number was unregistered, a disposable SIM. When Iza called it, it was already dead. Third, the witness who disappeared. 3 months after the initial investigation, a market trader came forward. A man named Topchoku said he had seen Emeka that morning, not at the waterside, but inside a compound off Oka Road. He said he had seen Emeka speaking to 2 men near a parked Sienna bus. He said the men looked like they were from Lagos, the way they were dressed, the way they talked. Before Topchoku could be formally interviewed, he stopped coming to the market. His fellow traders said he had traveled. To where, nobody could say. He has not been seen since. In June 2019, Inspector Badmus filed a report classifying the case as inconclusive. The language was careful, no confirmed crime had occurred. There was no body. There was no definitive evidence of foul play. Emeka Okafor was listed as a missing person. Ngozi was furious. She went to the state CID. She wrote letters to the Anambra State Commissioner of Police. She hired a lawyer. The case was briefly reopened in 2020, then quietly shelved again when the COVID-19 lockdown scattered everyone. In 2021, a journalist from a southeast Nigerian news outlet picked up the story. He published a 2-part investigation. He named Goldfield Consolidated Limited. He named Sigan Adeyemi. Within a week of publication, his editor received a legal letter threatening defamation action. The articles were taken down. The journalist, in a private message to Ngozi, wrote, "I found some things I cannot publish. Please be careful." He never elaborated. She still has that message on her phone. There is another theory. One that people whisper but do not say in public. In Onitsha, and across the southeast, there have been cases, not many, but some, where men simply walk away from their lives. The pressure of maintaining a family, supporting extended relatives, handling debts, paying school fees, meeting market obligations, sometimes it becomes too much. Men vanish. They start over somewhere else, under a different name. Ngozi rejects this completely. She says, "I knew my husband. We had our troubles, but he would never leave his children. Never. Something happened to him. Something was done to him." But the investigators who originally worked the case, at least one of them, told Isa, "Off the record, we cannot rule it out. We never found a body. We never found blood. We never found a crime." And so the case lives in that terrible space between mystery and grief, where you cannot mourn properly because there is nothing to bury, and you cannot move on because there is no closure, and every passing year the trail gets colder and the truth seems further away. Emeka Okafor walked out of a bank on a Tuesday morning in Onitsha. He had 5 million Nigerian nairas in a bag, purpose in his step, and a family waiting for him at home. He never came back. As of the time of this story, his case remains open and unsolved. Ngozi still lives in the bungalow in GRA. Chidi graduated. The younger children have grown up. They celebrate birthdays. They eat. They laugh sometimes. But there is always a chair at the table that stays empty, and a question that follows the family like a shadow. What really happened to Papa? Some truths, maybe, are not for our eyes. But that has never stopped us from looking. If you know anything about the disappearance of Emeka Okafor, or a similar case in your community, speak. Someone is always listening. And if this story moved you, if it made you think, if it kept you up a little later than you planned, then do one thing: subscribe to Stories by the King. Every week, we go where the truth is hiding. We follow the cold trails. We ask the questions others have stopped asking. Because some stories deserve to be told. Even the ones that never end. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. Stay curious. Stories by the King. Every story has a king.